Hey, great day, everybody. Welcome back to another incredible episode of the Gale Show. We're extremely excited to be here. We got so much great news, so many incredible things happening behind the scenes here with our company and Food Forest Abundance and inspiring people. And it's just feel incredibly grateful and present. And Jim, as always, it's awesome to see you, my friend. Lots of love to you. How you doing today?
Oh, love you, man. I'm just so happy. As the world is going absolutely crazy, we are transforming more people's minds and yards and lives than ever before. It's like going exponential. And there's so much going on at the same time. It's because we've got a great team. We've got people that recognize the value of what we're doing from all these different perspectives. Right? At the end of the day, it's health, wellness, freedom. It's a future of abundance for our grandkids and beyond. It's the solution to all the world's biggest problems, and people are recognizing it at scale. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, so awesome. And we got an excellent guest with us today. We were fortunate enough to speak with him last week on his show, and we wanted to make sure we got him on ours. Our friend Ryan Sprague with Highly Optimized. Ryan, good to see you, buddy.
You guys too. I'm so excited to be here. You know, organic regenerative agriculture, permaculture, these things are my background too. And they're a big part of what I speak about with cannabis, because with anything that's being grown, it's important that we are leaving the Garden of Earth greener than when we found it. And what I love about what you guys do is that you are doing something very similar to me, right? We're empowering the people at large, right? Rather than saying, oh, go outsource your power to this big corporation that grows this way. We're saying, no. Let's teach you how to do this at home. And I love that. So when I first met you guys, I was like, man, you know, it's a really cool sign for me when you have people like you guys come into my life and vice versa. To me, it's a sign that you're getting warmer. You know, I really think that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, plays a big game of warmer, colder with us. And, you know, that's what synchronicities are, right? Like if we think that like, you know, if the Bible quote that I love most, which I'm not religious, but I know a good line when I hear it, is if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must first enter the mind of a child. Well, think about what children are. They're pure imagination, they're pure joy, and they also allow themselves to play fun games, right? And so I think the closer we can get to that and see life that way, the better we're going to be able to enjoy life. And so when I met you guys, it was like another sign of warmer, and I'm so excited to be here.
That's fantastic. I have young kids, and I actually play warmer, colder with them sometimes. So yes. I get it.
Yes. I mean, it's so funny. Like, you know, like I think about that stuff often, how like, you know, I think it's one of the biggest paradoxes and like just like thirst traps of today's age, where I think it's starting to turn to where we are kids teachers. That's the story we give ourselves. But really, like we teach them about taxes. They teach us about the nature of God. So it doesn't really seem like a fair trade-off. You know what I mean? But it's so beautiful because, you know, kids, they remind us of our own power, right? Because they have yet to be convinced otherwise. And so, yeah, I love that.
You know, the study just came to mind. You seen the one about the paperclip and the kid? So parents or adults were asked to write down how many uses could they imagine for this paperclip. And it was like 9 or something. I don't remember the numbers exactly. But when kids were asked to write down that same thing, it was like 10x the amount of uses for that paperclip. Their imaginations are not bound up by the belief systems and the bullshit of the day.
Yes, 100%. I think, you know, imagination is our superpower. You know, it's at least one of them anyway. And I think that the challenging part of living in a very left brain dominant society where we're taught from a very early age to strengthen only the left side of the brain is that we lose that imagination. And the challenge with that, you know, I mean, it's obviously multifaceted. There's many challenges, but one of the biggest challenges is that this is one of the ways in which people get stuck into believing what they believe, right? Believing that, oh, I have terrible health just because my parents did, so I'm going to have it too. You know, I can't do anything to fix my own food supply, these kind of things, and obviously much other things as well, but I'm keeping it on brand for our subjects today. But, you know, it's like, if you want a new reality, you first have to imagine a new reality, right? And so if you can't imagine it, you can never get it, right? There's nothing down the line, downstream, that you'll be able to do without that first essential step of awareness through imagination.
Yeah, you nailed it. Imagination is the future. Knowledge is the past.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so I love spurring on imagination, and how I love to do it. Number one is just meditating, just starting with an intention or a question. In fact, the question is way more profound for me than the intention or the affirmation. Like, what's great about this, or how do we do this, or why is why can we do it this way? Even if there's not an answer present at the moment, when we ask the right question and we let our imagination go to work, the answer will come, and it'll blow our minds.
Definitely. It's like what I've always found too is as I've gotten deeper into psychedelics and meditating and spirituality, again, returning to being a kid, like it wasn't about answers, right? Kids don't ask why to get an answer. They ask why because they're genuinely curious, right? And so, like, there's a whole different perspective. When we get older, we ask questions to get the answer, not an answer, because we think, and this is, I think, exactly what you meant, Jim, by like knowledge is behind us now because there is no objective reality, right? And this is like something that breaks a lot of people's brains when they try to think about it, because to understand it, it's completely beyond the brain. But when you look into quantum physics, they state that there is no objectivity, right? So if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound? No, because no one's there to render it, right? So this whole idea of imagination is getting more comfortable in mystery, getting more comfortable asking a question and not having an objective answer, right? Being able to make your own answer based off of what you choose to believe about life. And I just think that's awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah, right? The tree will create, there'll be a vibrational wave, but the sound is something that's rendered by our ears.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it's like, it's one of those things that, like, I love things like that just break my brain. They're kind of like tongue twisters, but for your brain instead, because all the best experiences I've had where I've been the closest to what I call God, right? Whatever anyone calls it. The most joy I've had are times in which I was completely blown away with a synchronicity, a serendipity, a chance encounter that literally my brain was like, this doesn't make any sense. This can't even happen. But it did, right? So in that kind of like purgatory, if you will, between it can't happen, yet it did, in between there's some real magic that can happen.
Oh, that is for sure. Do you have some that stick out, like good stories about times when you're just like, oh my God, well, how is that possible?
Yeah. So I have one that I always think of when I think of this. And it's actually funny because I'm actually going to this music festival again in about 3 weeks. But I go to a music festival every year, or I was before the pandemic, hilariousness. But it's called Electric Forest. It's up in Michigan, and it's fucking awesome. Like anyone, like I've been to most music festivals around Canada, the US, Mexico, etc. It completely blows them out of the water. It is a psychedelic playground. It's a gigantic forest. They have all the stages and artists and everything, but honestly, I just go there to wander, right? So like every LSD story starts with, we took more than we thought. And so, I convinced all of my friends at that point that we should take these gel tabs that we had gotten. This is like, God, 8 years ago now, but we had got these gel tabs. I had tried one before. It didn't hit me too hard. So I convinced a bunch of people that did not like LSD that we should try this on the first day, which is like rookie mistake. You never take LSD the first day you're at a festival because you got to like map out the area and get your like your bearings, right? So I convinced everyone to take LSD, and we go in, and little did we know the ones we took were double doses. So I had taken this before, like I said, but I didn't know the different colors meant different things. Again, just, rookie mistakes. So I go into this music festival, and it starts hitting us, and all of my friends are starting to give me the eyes of like, dude, did you really think all this was going to happen? Because if so, this is aggressive, and so I just start looking at them like, yeah, everything's fine. This is totally what I expected, Meanwhile, I'm like, holy shit, like I'm tripping balls. So we end up having to go back to camp just to regroup, right? We're in there for like 5 hours. We're like, let's touch ground. So we go back to camp, and the way this music festival is set up is we park right next to where we camp, right? So when you're going around, you can see people's cars, things like that. So we're literally just touching ground. Like I'm talking like I'm just able to be like, oh yeah, I'm a human being. Oh, my name is Ryan. Like literally like so far out. So we're touching ground. We're in like our little gazebo area, just, hitting some music up and whatnot. And this guy walks by and he's like, hey, oh, that's awesome. You guys are from Massachusetts. Whereabouts? And so I tell him my town name. And again, this is in Michigan, in the middle of 60,000 people, right? Guy walks by. Where are you from? Massachusetts. He's like, oh, yeah, me too. I'm like, oh, cool. And then he's like, what town? I tell him my town. He's like, oh, I live in that same town. I'm like, all right. But I'm like, I'm tripping. So I'm like, I think this is weird right now, but maybe this actually isn't that big of a deal, because like you have to render stuff, like what is normal. So I'm like, oh, what part of town? Because I live in a big town. He's like, boom, says the exact part of town I live in. And I'm like, well, what street? It says my street name, right? And I'm like, all right, now I'm like, okay, like first paranoia central, like who followed me, right? Then I start realizing like, no, this is for real. Ends up, this kid lives like 10 houses down from me. He did not grow up there. That's why I didn't know him from high school or anything. But we ended up seeing each other every show, that I went to after that. But it was just one of those things where like, it's like, what are the odds of that? Like we went back to camp at a very specific time, right? And then while we're at camp, he happens to walk by. We happen to be like around outside of this gazebo for him to even say something to us. And then he lives at the same street as me, like over 1,000 miles away. Like some of the weirdest shit, and that's just one of them. Yeah. But I've had a couple like that before.
They're every day now. It's freaking crazy. We were at this place eating the other day, and I was with Gabriel, who's the Hollywood producer that wants to do a show, McKinley, and another guy. And there's this our waiter seemed really awesome. He was experiencing. He's 55 years old for one thing, and he just presented himself very awesome, right? Like there's something to this guy. So at the end, as he was taking our money and stuff, I'm like, hey, by the way, I just want you to know, I'd just like to share something with you. We have an off-grid community down the road, and we grow all of our own food. We produce our own water, our own energy. We're all about freedom. And I just felt like sharing that with you. And he goes, oh, that's amazing. I run an eco landscaping company. I'm only doing this part-time as part owner of this restaurant, just to fill in the gaps a little bit. But I run this company. So now we're all of a sudden collaborating. This is happening every freaking day. In fact, one more I got to share because this one always blows my mind. Erin Esser comes down. She's one of our partners in the Freedom Farm Academy. And she drove down from the Carolinas. Another guy, David Rodriguez, flies in for another event and says, I got to come to Gauls Landing. They were supposed to be at Gauls Landing at different times, but it ended up where they were at the same time. We're walking around, having a great conversation for over an hour. And then we get in the camper, and we're drinking some water in the AC because it was a hot Florida day. And Erin says, I just want to share something with you. My daughter sent me a video of a guy this morning. And my daughter wants to graduate high school early. She's aware of the indoctrination whole thing and all that, and she wants to graduate early. So she sent me a video of a guy that helps people graduate early. I guess he's from California, and I'd like to get a hold of this guy. It was David Rodriguez. Like, that's impossible in a Newtonian world. That's impossible. It's 300 and some million people. Boom. The guy she was looking for was the other guy in the room out of the three of us.
I mean, it's just like the what I believe it truly is, right? Obviously, we can categorize it as synchronicity, serendipity, chance encounter, but that is to leave the magic aside, right? Like if we choose to believe that we have that our lives intersect at the corner of free will and destiny, right? So we have free will and we have infinite different destinies based on what choices we make within our concept of free will. Well, I believe that there's like one that is the greatest and grandest. And so if like, this is just what I choose to believe, right? I have no evidence for this, but this is what I choose to believe. I believe that greatest and grandest is calling us in every moment of every day. And things like that, where there's no way to not say there's magic like among us, right? When those things happen, is our positive feedback system, kind of like our Pavlov's dog system, but from God, right? Telling us like, oh, like when you feel those things happen, you take note, right? And you start to notice like what's going on, who am I around, how am I feeling? And you're right, like Jim, there really is a quickening. And I've been hearing this from different sources. Like I think that whatever is happening, I don't know, and I don't care to know because that's the mystery. I like being enthralled in the mystery, but I do feel as though the people that are doing what they need to be able to allow their best version of themselves to come forward and to leave the Garden of Earth greener, to be collaborative in nature, I believe we are starting to get positive feedback signs to keep us going, right? Towards what? Who knows, right? But I've been noticing it happening to so many people that I work with and that like are around me in coaching, farming, doing the right thing. Like I think, it's really starting to happen quicker. So yeah, it's interesting.
Matthew, let's take a note. The Garden of Earth. I want you don't mind, Ryan, if we take
No.
that and make that a big one. The
No,
Garden
not-
of Earth. Because,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people, I love the idea, the vision, the feeling I get when I imagine the Garden of Eden. But there's a lot of people that immediately retract and be like, oh, that sounds kind of hokey, right?
Mhm.
The Garden of Earth, and I'm still going to use that in certain contexts, but the Garden of Earth, that's what this is. Let's create the
Yes.
Garden of Earth where there's literally food growing everywhere.
Yes, 100%. Yeah,
Nailed
it's
it.
like, why not? Why wouldn't we? You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's challenging because we've been so blue pilled as a society for so long that, like, even the red pills that make so much logical sense, like, do you want to save money? Do you want to, like, grow your own food? Do you want to have a healthier, state of being? Even those things can be challenging for some people. Well, I couldn't do that. I don't have a green thumb. It's like, you don't have to have a green thumb. Like, the earth knows how to grow stuff. All you must do is be a steward and not forget to water it. Like, even if you need to water it, right? Like, but again, at the end of the day, like, all we really need to do is just be the steward that watches over it and lets it do its own thing. It already knows how to do it. Like, if you leave a lawn unkept, you will very quickly realize you're not needed to allow nature to allow that to return back to its natural state. So yeah, it's interesting.
It is. And in a permaculture food forest, once it gets established, you don't have to do anything. It's just
Exactly. No
free
watering,
food
nothing.
everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, once it hits the water table too, like my parents' house, I grew up, we live on wetlands. And so, like, I mean, when the roots would get deep enough into like these hugelkultures and things like that I would make, I wouldn't even water them. Like, literally hot summers, 90, 100 degrees, wouldn't water them, and they'd just be in the water table. And so they'd be getting the exact amount of water all the time. It was beautiful, and that's why I always tell my parents to keep that piece of land, because it's so fertile. I mean, it's literally, if I go there right now, it's a jungle. It literally looks like you're in Costa Rica when you get there. It's crazy.
Fantastic. The other piece is the design piece. So everybody has their favorite fruits, their favorite nuts, their favorite edible plants. So we design those structures into the system. So now it's not just a random jungle, but it's a jungle that's designed to serve our highest and best vision.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it's like, how can we take what the earth does naturally, be able to steward it so that it gives us everything that we want, and when it's done, the earth is healthier as a result of it. It's like, that is to me what true regenerative agriculture is all about. I spoke to this guy, God, I forget his name. He's in Virginia. He was on Kyle Kingsbury's podcast. Super smart guy. You guys should definitely, you might already know him for all I know, but he has a great farm in Virginia, and he, very similar to you guys, was going over, like, I mean, he has done so much work to this land, and it is truly regenerative. And he's a younger guy. He's awesome. And it's just so amazing seeing like what people like you guys are doing. And it makes me so smitten because, I've been so passionate about this stuff for so long, and, doing my own thing, helping people grow at home, and, just like, be able to work the soil and be able to save money, cultivating their own cannabis, growing their own food, be healthier, and also work with the land. Like, if the world right now is lacking severely in connection, which it truly is, right? Like, every person I talk to is like, I don't have friends, right? Especially men, right? Like, men over the age of 40 have on average 0 people they can reach out to if shit gets rough. And women have their own statistics, but women are naturally better at like making sure they have like supportive systems around. Men, we've been indoctrinized to think that like lone wolf, it's, get to the top, cut people down. So we're getting out of all that now. But if we choose to believe that there's a lack of connection in the world, then what is more connecting than learning how to work with the earth, right? Because then guess what's synonymous about all of us? We all need food to survive, right? We all require connection, right? So like, if you have family members or things like that, or friends, it's like, hey, come help me with the garden, right? I'll cook us up an amazing dinner after. Yeah.
I've never had more friends in my life than I do right now. It's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is, what I want to do is invite all of the men out there who are maybe alone and not feeling it like you have friends. When you start speaking about freedom, and you start with faith and courage, and really go for it and share what's going on in the world, that what's going on, then you will attract amazing people. That's what's happened.
Exactly. 100%. Like, when the thing that is most attractive in the world is people living their truth. And I think that living your truth is kind of like a cliche statement these days, and it's thrown around, and I don't think a lot of people, and I don't think I knew what it meant for a long time, but now that I've been able to do it for such a long time and fall along the way and get back up and keep going, it's like, that's the number one thing that has inspired me when I've seen other people do it. Like all the people I've looked up to, they're people that are all walks of life, right? Like there's not many similarities between a lot of them, but they were living their truth for better or worse, right? And the thing is that, you know, I always want people to know is there will always be naysayers, because it's also very frustrating that people that don't want to live their own truth or don't know how to see other people do it, and they get jealous, right? And so, you know, I know for me, what I worried about for a long time is what will people think, right? Fuck what people think, because at the end of the day, the people that are willing to cut you down are not the people that are your audience, and they're not the people you'd want around you anyway. So the faster you can get them out of the way, the better. So, yeah.
What other people think of you is none of your business.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You put your point on something really important. There are a lot of people are feeling lonely because they're not speaking their truth. They're sitting in an environment where they know it's a lie, and maybe it's their family or something, and their family is on one side, and I imagine the really ignorant side of this whole situation, this global war that we are in, and they're scared to speak their truth because they're scared that they will then be even more alone. But there's nothing more lonely than sitting in a group of people who just you don't agree with at all. That's the ultimate loneliness. So I'd say step out and say, you know what? I don't believe in this whole thing. And here's exactly why. And a lot of people will leave you. They'll say, you're crazy. I've got a lot of good friends, some old, really, really good friends. They don't want to talk to me anymore. Okay, well, I still love them, but I am so glad that I stepped out. And now I've got incredible friends like you guys. And that's a beautiful thing.
Well, and I find it so interesting how I am not angry with anybody for their beliefs around this, but people that disagree with me are angry at me.
Yeah.
And don't want to talk, right? So
Yeah.
like I'm not pushing anybody away. Unfortunately, they are pushing me out. But
well, I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? Because, you know, anger is a sign that, I mean, it's a sign of a couple of different things. But for me, like, because I found that same thing, you know, when I first started getting into sovereignty, when I first started getting into taking accountability for all of my life, not just the pretty parts. You know, I had a lot of friends that I used to hang out with and go to clubs with, and, you know, a bunch of friends that were like, yeah, anarchy, right? And obviously didn't get what that word meant, nor do I believe in necessarily anarchy, but it was just like to have those people be some of the first people to be like, trust the science, you know? I'm just like, okay, hey, like discernment wise, not my flavor of ice cream, still love you guys. But, you know, again, like we get to hold the line, and we have to, because no one's going to hold it for us, right? So, you know, one of the hardest things, like you guys are mentioning, is especially as a man, because we are afraid of getting ostracized by the tribe. That's like literally in our DNA, you know, like it's not the same as it was back in tribal societies, but it's same, you know? And so like, if we only know a certain world and then we start feeling very out of alignment with it, right? How do we find the courage to be able to speak up, right? Hopefully people are listening to podcasts like this and realizing this is part of the hero's journey, right? Like leaving home from what you've always known, going out into the great unknown, you know, becoming your true self, and then eventually being able to come back. Like over the last 4 years, I've had many friends that I've had for a very long time that at first were like, I don't get what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And now they're like, hey, man, I might still not get what you're doing, but I love you for it. I'm like, cool. Like, I don't care if anyone agrees with me. I don't care if you believe me. I'm not doing any of this for anyone else. I'm doing it because it's what's burning out of me. And all I ask of anyone I love is that they allow me to be me, and I'll allow them to be the same thing, right? Like whether you, let's say, get the thing, don't get the thing, believe in organic, don't believe in organic. It's like, for me, so long as you're allowing me to live my life and you're being respectful, that's really the only thing that I require, you know? And I wouldn't want everyone to believe everything that I believe, because that wouldn't be fun. You know what I mean? Like I love being able to agree to disagree and have awesome discussions. Like on Instagram, there will be trolls all the time that are just like absolute clowns, right? One follower, no picture. I'm like, I'm not even going to waste my time. There are some people though that are like, hey, I actually don't understand this. I don't agree with it. I'm like, cool, let's have a discussion. And like 99% of the time, we end up like coming to a conclusion where it's like, we might not agree, but it's like, dude, thanks for talking. I'm like, this is awesome. You know? So, you know, I learn a lot from people that have different viewpoints in life. And again, there's no objective reality, right? So I would be a hypocrite if I said that and then expected people to agree with me, or only said that you can be friends with me if you agree with me, right? Like, I actually like when people disagree with me, because it shows me they're living their version of truth, not just taking on mine.
100%.
It makes me think of the one of the books that I have read to my daughter that we have called The Good Egg, and it's all about this egg who's good. He likes to help people. He helps the old lady cross the street and does all these things. And everybody else, he's surrounded by a bunch of bad eggs, 11 others. So he decides he's going to leave, and he goes gets time away, to reflect and meditate and centers himself and realizes that everybody doesn't need to be like him. It's okay that there's some bad eggs, and I just love them all. We all get along really well.
Yes. I mean, it's so cool. And, honestly, like, I think children's books, like, there's a whole new thing. I don't know how to describe this, but some of these children's books coming out are so conscious. Like, like that is literally like a life lesson that most adults need. You know what I mean? And like, we're allowing kids to read it and be like, oh, cool book, and as you start to elevate your consciousness, you really start seeing that kind of stuff, because it's a very right brain thing, right? To be able to read a story and see like the deeper layers of it. And I think kids are really naturally good at seeing those deeper layers and not trying to make sense of it necessarily, just being like, wow, cool story, So yeah, I have a buddy that wrote a children's book recently, and I was reading it and I was like, this is fucking awesome, like this gets a point across in 12 pages.
Well, we definitely need more conscious children's books, because there is a lot of crap out there for them, both in the books and then obviously in the television space.
Yeah, the whole thing. Like, I mean, think about like how crazy it is that people are still eating like Lucky Charms and like Oreo cereal. Like again, I'm not judging. Like, I'm just a very curious observer. Like I say all the time, like if you were in the 90s, like there was information out, but there wasn't the internet. It was harder to know. Like you thought probably it wasn't the healthiest, but you didn't really know. Nowadays, like it's not a discussion anymore. It's really just like objectively, if there is an objective truth to this, it's like this stuff is not going to be good for you long term, right? But yeah, exactly. And yet people are still willingly doing it, right? I'm not talking about people that might not be able to afford things. That's a whole different thing. But like, every time I go to like a convenience store to grab something, right? Like I needed water or something like that. I'll see people that are just like me back in the day. So I'm calling myself out on this, but like, pizza slice from 7-Eleven, candy. And I'm just like, man, like it reminds me of the times in which I did that and how brutal I felt, but I didn't know any better, but nowadays there's just so much research out. It's like crazy. And there's so many healthy options for everything. Like, you want an Oreo? There's a version out there that's like organic, gluten-free. It's still not the best for you, but it's not going to be complete poison, And so I tell everyone, I'm like, if you're not eating healthy these days and you have the option to, and you could afford it, like, what the hell? Like, it's just crazy.
Well, and I think they prey on kids, right? So there's a convenient place to put all those shit cereals with the colorful characters on them. And it's not at your and my eye height. It's at our children's eye height. And then they pray that the kids will manipulate the parents into getting this thing. And I think a lot of the time it works.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Which is why they do it.
Definitely. Well, you think about it too, like the adults are mostly tired from working a job that they were sold they were going to like, based on a system that told them go to school for 18 years, then go to college, you'll get a nice job, you'll get a house, you'll get a wife, you'll put into a 401k, you'll retire when you're 65. So they're dealing with that, and that like whole like, life crisis moment, right? They're walking down the aisle getting blasted with fluorescent lights, being up since God knows what time in the morning, right? Probably not eating healthy. They're walking down the aisle and the kid's like, mommy, daddy, it's just like, fucking fine, throw it in there. You know what I mean? So I can see this stuff happening. And that's why I say it's never any judgment. It's just very curious observations, because the challenging thing is no one's going to come save the day for any of these people. Like, and just the way no one did it for me, I had to piss blood before I finally realized my choices mattered. And I was grateful for that, because once I did, when I was 18, and again, I don't think it was because of any certain one thing I was doing. It was just a really great wake up moment where I realized, like, holy shit, I'm not immortal, right? Like when you're 18, you believe you're immortal. And so that woke me up to like, my choices matter. Like, I have the ability to make better choices and make better and get better results in my life. And so I think a lot of people are just going so fucking fast, right? All the time, that they haven't stopped to think about that. And it's challenging, and I think that what's so great about what you guys do is you can go give them an experience, right? So rather than just trying to convince them why healthy food is the way to go, which obviously we all agree with, but being able to bring them to an actual place, right? Like an actual food forest, and allow them to be in the symbiotic relationship with nature, allow them to get the earthing that they're getting from the ground, and be able to smell clean air, and be able to have a meal and be like, wow, this is different. And also have a meal with community, right? And be laughing. And it just like that experience. Like, I think the best thing for a world that is currently stuck in a very small attention span, coupled with instant gratification illness, is being able to gift experiences rather than information, because we're already all up to here with information. And if information alone was going to help people change their life, we'd all be geniuses. I mean, like, there's just go on ChatGPT, for instance, right? Just that one area, and you can get any answer you want. But, you know, being able to give people an experience, that is the ultimate thing, you know, for me. And that's the thing that really shows people like, oh, this is possible. Because again, imagination, right? Like we were talking about earlier, it's not exactly easy to imagine when all the things that I already mentioned, plus calcified pineal gland, drinking tap water, fluoride, etc. So you bring them to an experience, and they at least then know, oh, this is possible, right? Like, and this is I've seen people do it now, you know, and it can be a little harder.
Or an in period, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I've been playing a lot lately, is inside and in periods. I go, all my energy is just feeling, and then all of a sudden, the inside and the outside become one thing. It's a vibration, it's a frequency, it's the foundation, the wellspring of life. It's what I call God. It's omnipresent, omnipotent, everywhere, all the time, and we're all reflections of it from our individual at the moment perspective.
Yes. I mean, you know, the way I think about it is like, it's like a snow globe, right? So if you if you think a snow globe, the only fun in it is like shaking it up, right? Because maybe, especially when you're a kid, you like cause and effect, right? So you're just shaking the snow globe and you're like, whoa, look how fast the snow goes, right? So that's what you think. That's what you've been sold matters, right? So all life, you're just shaking this thing up, right? And so eventually what you can do is maybe one time you're convinced or slowed down enough to stop, and you're like, whoa, there's a whole town in there, right? And so same snow globe, right? Same hand you're holding it in, but totally different experience, because now you've realized the beauty of what's there when you're not constantly going, you know? And that's like exactly what you were talking about, like the law of correspondence. This is why I love Hermetics so much. As within, so without, as above, so below. It's like, I heard that so many times and was like, I think I get it, until I experienced it, right? Like, till I experienced, like, you know, for instance, this is the analogy I always give too. Like, you know, imagine that you have a first date that goes fucking amazing, right? You really, really like, oh my God, all the right signs are there. And you're going home and your tire pops. How do you feel in that moment? Versus you're on the same date, right? And you have a terrible time, and then your tire pops on the way home, right? So if you're able to have that first date and internally feel, oh my God, this is amazing, pretty much anything could happen. And you'd be like, oh, this sucks, but hey, I had a great first date, right? But to the degree you don't understand that, you'll be affected by anything external to you going quote unquote wrong, right? But if you're on that first date, let's say, and you understand that you are amazing and that other people are amazing, but maybe you're just not the right flavor of ice cream for each other. And so then that first date doesn't go well and you pop your tire on the way home, you'll have a much better chance of being like, well, you know, I mean, these are two different things. I had a date, it didn't go well, but you know what? I'm excited that I'm holding my boundaries about what I want. And yeah, my tire popped. Not the best, but hey, you know what? If I feel internally good about myself, then nothing external is going to be able to affect me, you know? Mm-hmm.
What a life lesson that is. And again, it's really simplistic.
I know. I wish it was that easy every time, but it can be that simple, you know?
Yeah.
So what do you do, Ryan? Tell us about who you are and what you do. And yeah, I'd like to get the audience to hear that.
Absolutely. So what I do is I teach people how to connect with cannabis consciously, and I remind them of, or allow them to remember what cannabis has truly been here for throughout antiquity, right? So many people think of cannabis as a dirty drug, something that's going to rot your brain, make you stupid, these kind of things. Exactly. The devil's lettuce, right? And they also think that cannabis makes them lazy or makes them paranoid or makes them anxious. And essentially, this plant has been getting shit on because of the reefer madness era. Now, for people that don't understand this, I'll go over a very quick synopsis of this. Basically, the same stuff that's happening today was happening 80 years ago. It's just that it was able to work and happen much easier because there wasn't the internet. So these individuals like Andrew Mellon, Henry Anslinger, et cetera, got together. Together, they owned the biggest journalism empire at that time and the biggest stakes in nylon and cotton industries. So they got together and were like, shit, this thing called hemp is really going to fuck us up. So what we're going to do is invent and coin a term called marijuana. And then we're going to create a story that Mexican men are coming over the border and raping white women with this new, completely unseen drug called marijuana, right? Because at this time, cannabis was a part of over 60% of every medication on the market. Doctors used it all the time, right? So they come up with this story, and overnight they go to Congress and they get it banned. So in the morning, all of these doctors wake up and they're like, wait, they banned what? And so that started the reefer madness era. That is literally why cannabis became illegal. Before that, it wasn't looked at this way. Now, if you're looking at people like Chris Bennett, he has research that spans over 10,000 years showing that cannabis has been a part of pretty much every occult practice. It's mentioned in the Bible. I mean, this is nothing new, right? So what I'm teaching is not something new. It's teaching maybe a different way of teaching it, but it's really helping people remember what cannabis is truly here for. Now, what I'm truly teaching people, though, is how cannabis is simply a vehicle, right? And it's up to us to claim ownership over our lives and experiences and choices with the plant. So cannabis doesn't make us lazy or paranoid. We failed to check in before we connected with the plant as to what our energy levels were, what our nervous system regulation looked like. And so therefore we can receive things like anxiety that were already within us, right? Getting heightened, getting amplified, because cannabis acts as an amplifier. So what I'm teaching people to do is break dependency to the plant, take their power back, create a healthy relationship with the plant where they can connect with it as a spiritual aid and ally, the same way that it's been connected with for over 10,000 years in human history, and then how to connect and cultivate with it, or cultivate it organically, regeneratively with Korean natural farming and biogeometry. Because if you truly want a plant medicine to be able to work for you, it's important that you cultivate it yourself. Because the same way that if you've ever read The Adventures of Don Juan, when he's speaking, he's saying like, hey, it's very important that you cultivate these plants yourself because your energy gets put into them. They get to know you. So I'm teaching people how to, right from the start, put the seed in their mouth, allow their microbiome to inoculate the seed so that when that seed is growing, that plant is truly aware of who is growing it, right? And it's a great way to be able to experience yourself, right? Because if you grow this plant organically and you're doing all of these things and then you connect with it and you're feeling some kind of static interference, you can ask yourself, what kind of energy was I embodying when I grew this plant, right? And there's individuals like Joe Patitucci now who have come up with systems like Plant Wave that can actually show how our energy affects the plants around us, right? It's very similar to Masaru Emoto's work with water, right? And plants are a big percentage of water, same as us, right? So no surprise there. But that's a lot of what I'm doing. And I have this entire year-long program called the Conscious Cannabis Collective, where we have 3 separate programs. We have Connect with Cannabis, which is designed to help you master your relationship with the plant. Coach with Cannabis, where you get certified to be an educator, a guide, a facilitator, coach, anything you want to be. And then being able to learn how to grow it in the Grow with Cannabis program as well, where I teach people, again, about IMO and just mixing your own soils and a lot of the same stuff that, I'm sure you guys work with too. And we don't get into permaculture too much just because most people are doing it either indoors or small setups. But I teach them a lot about Korean natural farming, which is kind of my stand-in for that. So yeah, that's what I do. And yeah, it's really fun.
That's amazing. Well, I would like to work with you when we start growing at Galt's Land and Kratom, Cannabis, and many other things. We're growing some mushrooms now. So we've inoculated the cattle pasture with different types of psilocybin spores. And once in a while I go out and I pick 1 or 2 and put them in a tea and microdose. It's freaking amazing. And once in a while macrodose, right? And then just sit with the food forest and meditate and just feel the life. It's so epic.
Oh, it's amazing, man. Like these plants and medicines are here not to be the moon or sun, right? They aren't the moon or sun. They're the finger that can point us back to it. And, when we become disoriented. And I think for a lot of people, they're mistaking them as the moon or sun. So what they do is, let's say they feel shitty, right? Maybe disempowered, maybe depleted, maybe low energy, whatever it is. They connect with something like cannabis and their logical brain goes, when I connect with this, I feel some sense of better. So then instead of saying, hey, what is this plant showing me is possible within me, right? What can I learn from? They go, I guess I need to interact with more cannabis to feel this feeling all the time. Cue patterns of dependency. And what I tell everyone is when people have a problem with cannabis dependency, that's not actually their problem. That's the result and coping strategy of whatever the actual problem is. And so a lot of what we do within the programs is learn how to connect with the plant to illuminate what these root causes are so we can pull them, very similar to the garden, we can pull them right at the root and we can choose, because cannabis can enter us into a theta brainwave state, to implant new seedlings that are going to grow into the patterns and programs that we wish to have in our subconscious, And so this is a lot of what cannabis has been used for. If I could surmise it in kind of like a modern day statement, is being able to put us into extremely suggestible states to be able to not only gain awareness, but also be able to reprogram the subconscious mind. And so, again, like being able to connect with the plant and remember how to do these types of things is amazing, because at the end of the day, like I tell everyone, no one needs cannabis, right? At the end of the day, like what we need is to remember our true divine nature as spiritual beings having a human experience. And the great thing about plant medicines is that in the modern day world where there's short attention span, there's more things to keep us busier than ever. Sometimes it does take a jetpack to illuminate for someone what they don't know, like trying to convince someone, well, meditate for the next year every day. You might feel something by the end of the year. It's just like, it's challenging for a lot of people. Like, yes, I understand what that feels like. I have people every day, well, you could just meditate. Guys, for most of the world, that's not going to be what immediately gets them out of it. What got me into meditating and everything was connecting with psychedelics and being like, whoa, that's worth working for. Now I know what I'm going for. Like, to expect that people are going to spend a lot of their life in spirituality when they have all these distractions around them and they're so blue-pilled and they're just going to like work every day for something that doesn't immediately pay off is silly, right? It's just not realistic. And so being able to understand these types of things, especially like I say, like my mission is not to get anyone who's not already connecting with the plant to think they need the plant, right? My mission is, hey, all of you that are already connecting with the plant, why are you truly connecting with it? Do you want to feel better? Do you want to only feel better when you're connecting with the plant? Or would you be interested in learning how to connect with the plant to allow your entire life to become a psychedelic experience where you're having more serendipities, synchronicities, chance encounters, and you truly feel alive whilst being alive? That's my mission.
Ah, man, Ryan, that is so beautiful. Well, thank you for everything you're doing. I had the seed in my mouth while you were talking there for a while. I've heard a lot about that lately. Matthew, any last words?
Well, Ryan, it's so great to hear the passion and the knowledge that you have gathered and how well you articulate what it is that you're doing and the value that this plant can bring to people's lives. It's been awesome to talk with you. And as always, man, it's so great to see you. And thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I mean, I love riffing with you guys. It's a battery charging, extravaganza, and that's what I look for in every single person I talk to. That's like one of the ways in which I know I'm around the right people. It's like, do I leave feeling like I can go through a brick wall? Let's go. So thank you guys again. This is awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Matthew, as always. And if everybody listening, if you like this message, please share it, and also step into your faith, your courage, your presence, and be free.
Outstanding.
See you, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Peace. Boom.
It's so we're still on live. You can hop out. I'll just play a couple ads and away we go, and we'll reconnect here soon. Okay, buddy?
Perfect, bro. Have a great day, Matt.
You too, Ryan.
Peace, brother. Bye.
Love, buddy. Bye. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Fantastic conversation with Ryan from Highly Optimized. He's got another show called This One Time on Psychedelics, and lots of value to add there. So thank you for tuning in.
At Weston A. Price Foundation, we're dedicated to restoring nutrient-dense, farm-fresh foods to the human diet. We look to ancient food and health practices for clues on how to live our healthiest, most vibrant lives today. Join the mission and check out our exclusive membership details at westonaprice.org. As a member, you'll receive our quarterly journal on wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts, our annual shopping guide, monthly access to private Q&A sessions with experts, consultations on state laws, regulations, and policies, including food freedom legislation, and so much more. Weston A. Price Foundation. Let's return to wise, traditional foods.
And as always, if you'd love to learn more about how to grow your food, leveraging permaculture and permaculture food forests, go over to foodforestabundance.com. You can get yourself registered for a 30-minute free strategy session with a permaculture designer and have a chance to dive in on what is possible for you and your property. Incredible things. Thank you so much again for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Have an amazing day.